Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Stratford Inland Wetlands Commission. Wait for Mr. Haddad. Okay, thank you. Okay, our first order of business is a continuation of the public hearing to propose modification of the inland wetlands and watercourses regulations. Applicant Bluebird Prestige Incorporated. Mr. Bellis, attorney.
Yes, good evening all. I guess the first thing I'd like to do is just a technical kind of thing. I don't remember who I put on the application as the petitioner. I think I may have put Bluebird. It got a little confusing because Bluebird had another application here, so I'll just change it to Red Buff Rita Inc., which is a property owner in Stratford. But otherwise, what I had given you last time was what I considered an update to your regulations so that it could conform to some of the case law and some of the new statutes since the last time. I had listed maybe, I don't know, 10 or so sections that needed updating, not all the regulations. And I went through them with you, and then I cited the statute that makes it an update. I think Kelly may have handed out the packages that some of you requested. If not, I have a couple of hard copies if you need it. I don't know. Does anyone need a hard copy? You're good? Okay. Yeah, what I ended up doing, I thought it was a little easier, and I think you had suggested it, to show the statute that I'm referring to, and that's what I tried to do. So, for instance, I'll just pick one. Your regulations may say regulated activity, and all I did was copy the words from the statute, which was 22A-3813 verbatim, so now you match the statute perfectly. In this petition, we designate there's a wetlands area that you guys regulate, and then there's the upland review area. And the upland review area it could be whatever you want it to be. And you guys have always made it 100 feet from a wetland, when you flag the wetlands, or 250 feet from certain rivers, ponds, brooks, blah, blah, blah. And then we simply clarify that in an upland review area, in order for it to be considered a regulated activity, it has to have a significant impact or major effect on the wetlands. And that's right out of the state statute. If it does have that, if it does have a significant impact or effect on the wetlands, then you get to regulate it, just like you always do. If it does not, then your jurisdiction is over, and there is no permit issued. It's just a letter usually saying that you reviewed it, there was no impact, and then the person can go to the zoning or wherever they have to go next. So those are some of the key modifications. Your permits say that they expire in 5 years. Now the statute says 10 years, so that's pretty easy. The statute says that you can impose a $1,000 fine if you find A, B, C, or D, and I just copied that right out of the statute. You had a weird thing in there that said if someone sells their land, they got to come back to the Wetlands Commission. I don't know, really. Permits run with the land, they don't run with the owner. So it doesn't really matter who the owner of the property is. If you grant a wetlands permit to me and I sell it to my son doesn't have to come back before you again because I already came and you granted it. So that could have just been a mistake in your regulations. But I gave the statute for that. You have a nice form, although I don't know that we use it. Maybe Kelly may know. It's if you find something in the upland review area, or if someone wants to get a ruling that there's no wetlands on the property, Sometimes we have to come to the Wetlands Commission before we can file a zoning application and just say, hey, listen, we asked the wetlands officer whether there was any wetlands, and there aren't any, so there's no need to have a hearing, you know. So that's a nice little form that you guys already have. I didn't draft that. It's already in part of your regulations. So that's kind of what I did. I think I was only here tonight to close the public hearing and to ask, to answer any of your questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Bellis, Attorney Bellis?
Yes. Yes,
go
Attorney
ahead.
Bellis.
Yes.
When you say significant impact, who decides what is and what isn't significant impact?
The Wetlands Commission. The Wetlands Commission based on evidence that's put before you.
And also, there is a term here, the agency shall regulate any operation.
Which one? Do you
That's
have
under
a number?
Section 6.2.
6.2.
Yes, and
Well, I'm not sure if I'm reading the same as you.
It
says delete regulated setback area, is that the one?
No. Oh, it's under there. It says, there's a paragraph, says, if I may read it, the agency shall regulate any operation within or use of a wetland, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just wondering, who is agency?
I think they're referring to the
In this language.
Wetlands Commission.
Agency is also Wetlands Commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? I'd be glad to help.
Commissioners, anything else?
Yeah, maybe just, I guess I want to understand that you understand that our regulations are based on the states as a model, and in some cases, our regulations are stricter as we're allowed to do.
That's not necessarily true. I can't say I can agree with that statement.
I don't know if it's about agree or disagree. I think, right, I think we as a municipality have the ability to have, like you pointed out, the state says a review area is 100 feet away from a delineated
No,
building.
the state doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. What
No,
does it
you
say?
selected 100 feet.
Oh.
You, the
Okay.
wetland, your commission have always had in your regulations 100 feet. Some towns have 50 feet, but you have 100 feet.
Right.
You have, so I just kept that.
Okay, but we also have, as you pointed out, for, nearly a dozen specific brooks and ponds and whatnot.
You selected.
Much greater, right, which we
That-
are
which is
able-
okay.
Is okay, okay. I just want to be sure.
I'm not asking to change that.
No, you weren't, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm not rewriting your regulations. I'm just trying to update those that are inconsistent with new laws or with the state statute.
if they're inconsistent, are they less than state statute?
So. the st-
Inconsistent and more lenient?
I'll say,
Let's- you know what I
I'll
mean?
try to explain it, and
Sure.
if I'm not being clear, it's me, not
Yeah.
you.
Okay,
Okay, so the state says, you meaning the town, can adopt wetlands regulations. And they have a statute that allows you to do that. Otherwise, towns have no power, zero, unless the state gives it to you. So the state has clearly given you the power to have wetlands regulations, right? So you can do that, and you've done it. However, the state has also said in their state statutes that they maintain or keep certain things that they allow, so you can't contradict the state or do something different than what the state already has. And I'll give you a perfect example is the bonding issue. So in the state statutes, it says that the zoning commission can order a bond for a soil and erosion control measures. It's what the state statute says. Not the Wetlands Commission, it says the Zoning Commission. So that is something that the state has already said, hey, we're giving the power to zoning, we're not giving it to wetlands. You guys have traditionally, maybe you work together with zoning, I don't really know. Perhaps you sometimes say, they say, you know, maybe they delegate it to you, I don't really know. But under the law, that power is specifically given to the zoning commission. Can never do that. It may have happened, that doesn't make it right, okay? Yeah. Okay, I don't know what that means, but.
The town has well water.
Yeah.
You have to use a certain type of copper.
Oh, I don't know, yeah. Yeah, maybe you do.
Well, that's the law. The town could do that to you. It's well water, you gotta use
Yeah,
well too.
yeah. Well, this is a,
The code is saying.
yeah, I think I follow what your analogy is, yeah, to the plumbing thing. So the, I don't think that the changes are all that significant, but it's just a little bit different than the way you may have been doing things in certain areas. Not a lot, though, you know, not a lot, really. So it's an update, that's what it is. Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask any members of the public if they would like to speak in favor of this application. Anyone in favor? Anyone in opposition wants to speak? Anyone in opposition? Okay, seeing no one, no other questions from the commissioners? I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
John. Thank you, Attorney Bellis. We're going to bring this up again under old business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you very
gonna-
much.
We're going to have some comments. Larry had that. Okay, at this time, we're going to call the regular meeting to order. First order of business, approval of minutes.
I'll second.
Wait, go ahead, Gary. Duly noted, thank you.
If you're going to motion, can you just state your name before you motion? Just because we have a fill-in secretary. Thank you.
A motion for correction, Gary Pia.
Okay, now I'm going to, again, ask for a motion to approve the minutes as amended. John, wait.
Second.
Second by Angela. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Guess we go right into the old business, huh? Okay, old business. Bluebird Prestige again. Mr. Bellis? I believe we have some questions. Kelly has some comments and questions for you under old business.
We closed the public hearing, so we can't ask him anything else for the record, correct?
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
done.
Oh,
I
you know,
think
I'm
done.
sorry.
Yep.
Excuse me, you're absolutely correct. I apologize.
That's okay. That's all right. I don't mind talking to
I
Kelly.
do this enough, I should know.
It's all right.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Mountain Development Corp. Sorry, I didn't realize what I did.
Ready?
Yeah. You want to revisit it after him?
Then you might, I think you need to change the agenda. You either need to take it off and then table it or modify the agenda.
Hold on, Mr.,
Yep.
hold on, Chris.
No problem.
I want to ask the commissioners, with Bluebird Prestige, Red Buff Rita regulations, do you feel you want to table it till next meeting? So Kelly has some comments that she's going to interject.
The commission can discuss it and make a decision tonight. You guys can also discuss it and table it till next month. That's up to you, whatever you prefer.
Motion to table it, but could we discuss this later in our post-meeting commissioners' discussion? Could we talk about that?
I don't know if that would be the proper forum for that commissioner's discussion. Well, I guess, what do you think?
I think what he's saying is, can we talk about it in the decision session or discussion session, as opposed to in the commissioners?
Okay, well, you have a motion to table, right, Joe?
Yes, sir.
We need a second. Second by Dr. Chess. Well, we closed the public hearing. We're not going to get any new information. But maybe we want to digest this a little bit. But it's up to the commissioners. I'll do whatever you guys want to do. I want to be fair to the applicant and fair to us.
Mr. Chairman, and I was referring to the Commissioners Forum to have, allow us to discuss this matter. Could we do that?
Right, right, absolutely. Right, that's, yeah, we will discuss this later, so, but do you, gonna,
So are you guys asking to switch the agenda around?
Right, if it's just semantics, why can't it be the second point of old business, right? We'll just do mountain, whatever.
Yeah, you could just change the.
Why don't we just do it right after this application?
it's getting a little confused here.
What is it called? Mountain Development Code. So it's still old business, right?
All right, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna ask for a motion to take old business out of order. We're gonna bring Mountain up first, and then we'll revisit Bluebird. I'll make that motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Sorry about the confusion.
Thank you.
John second.
Robert's rules, always fun.
Larry
Good
was
read.
first, John second.
Go ahead, Chris.
Chair, Commissioners, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzi LLC offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield, here on behalf of the property owner 99 Hawley Lane. I don't know if there's too much for me to say. I've been here before, and I've been through kind of what the proposal is. I'm happy to refresh that because it has been a few months since then. We continued this over because there were some comments from the town engineer, and then our engineer responded to those comments. I believe those responses were distributed to you. Manny Silva's here, our engineer. He'd be happy to go through some of his responses with you. There were some that were that dealt with their questions regarding runoff. There were other things that were just kind of notations on the plans that he asked us to update, which we did. There was like there was an 8-inch, there was what was supposed to be an 8-inch gravity pipe that was called a 6-inch gravity pipe, so we made amendments to the plan. So there's some kind of minor things like that. But again, if the commission wanted, happy to have Manny come up here and discuss any of those responses. But again, you know, this is this was an application that was denied and then subsequently appealed, and we are here with these offers to try to settle that appeal. The proposal mainly centered around addressing some of the concerns that were expressed to that during that meeting, and there's a proposal to add an additional conservation easement area of 60,000 square feet, which 44,000 of it is upland review area. There's an enhanced sewer pump station now proposed that multiplied the number of gallons in the storage tank from 8 times, from 4,000 to 32,000. There was also an invasive species control plan that was submitted by Land Tech that addressed a number of measures to control invasive species, as well as do some plantings to enhance the upland review area. So with that, I mean, I'm happy to go into more detail, Chair. I know we've been through this a couple times and talking about it, but again, Manny's here if you have any questions specifically about his responses, which was the latest. Not quick enough. To answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, ask any questions you'd like.
I have a question. Could you tell me what the entire impervious surface of this project will be?
Of just the addition to what's there existing now. So right now, in the square footage number, I'll have to calculate it out, but right now it's at 12.7% existing. We're proposing 19.8%, and in this zone, it's you can go to a maximum of 50%. So we're less than half.
Do you have something in
And he's gonna get you those.
square feet?
Yeah, he's gonna get
And
you
could you tell me how much, if we have say a 2-inch rainfall, how many gallons of water will a 2-inch rainfall be generated off of that impervious surface?
Manny Silva from Rostizo, Fairfield, Connecticut, 35 Brentwood Avenue, registered civil engineer.
Yep.
Good evening. So the 2-year storm in the report, let me see if I can actually get one that's pretty close to 2-inch rainstorm.
Yes.
So the 2-year storm is actually over, let me see here, 2-inch. 2-year storm is 3.5 almost.
Right.
So the 2-year rainstorm, the 2-year would generate a peak flow after, our construction of about 3.9 cubic feet per second. And so the system itself, that's the discharge. What it would generate would be...
Yeah, like how many gallons would in, say, 24 hours since...
Yep, I have to do that conversion. Existing peak.
Gallons in 24.
So hold on, I could probably, if I had the full thing, it actually has the volumes on there in the appendix. But you'd have to convert, 329 times, how many? Yeah, can I have it? Yeah, it probably has it right in there. So the proposed Let me pull out the 2-year storms here. Just want to make sure I get it right here. 2-year storm, which is not your 2 inches, but it's like 3.5, so it's close enough, I guess. But it's actually going to be a little more than a 2-inch rainstorm. What we did was, we actually have a calculation for the 1-inch rainstorm right on the plan.
Well, if we know the 1-inch rainstorm, then we could just multiply by 3.5.
It's 27,000 cubic feet, so 27,000 cubic feet on the 1-inch rainstorm. So that's around 27,000 cubic feet is around 116 US gallons, so that's multiplied by 2. 116 times 2. So you're talking about 232 gallons of water for 2 inches?
How many is that?
232
232.
gallons. Wait, that doesn't sound right.
That
Hold on.
doesn't sound
Hold on,
right.
no, that conversion's got to be wrong. Oh, sorry, that's cubic inches. Hold on, cubic feet. So that's cubic feet to the U.S. gallons. That's 201, or basically 202,000. 202,000. So basically 404,000 gallons.
440,000 gallons.
Yep.
And the two detention basins that are on site,
There's actually technically 3. So
Three.
there's a gallery system, there's a detention basin, and then there's an existing detention basin that's after the gallery system.
okay, so the two detention basins have a storage capacity of 202,000 plus gallons. So that's, so we're talking about 3.5 inches of rain is going to be twice as much rain than those two detention basins could handle.
Hold on. And I'll tell you why that is. So what the storage we have is equivalent to almost 250,000 gallons. That's our storage capacity.
All right.
So that means that we can, if you want it volumetrically, it's a little bit more than 2 inches of rainfall on the whole site, right? But not the whole, so the whole site, the rain doesn't, so the thing is that we store the water and then we meter the flow out, right? So we're discharging a amount of water slowly, so we don't need to hold a whole volume. So it's not like we have our storage things are just tanks that are just holding the water and then we hold them there forever, right?
Right.
We have these control structures that have basically small orifices on the bottom of them. And what we do is we model and we do these calculations to figure out if I discharge the same amount of water that was there today. So if you had to measure how much water was coming off the site today, right?
Yeah.
And you had a gauge.
Yeah,
What we're doing is we're allowing that amount of water to go off the site after we, if this was to be approved and constructed. And that then requires us to have a certain amount of storage to hold back that additional water that the impervious is creating.
right.
Do you understand that a little bit?
Yes.
So what happens is then, in the report, you'll see, in the appendix, you'll see this graph where this right here is the water, if we didn't have any controls or any storage, right? We would have this discharge of a very high peak around, in this case, it was almost 10 cubic feet per second. So what we're doing is we're storing that water, we're holding that peak to less than what the existing condition had. Are you following me so far? And then we're gonna prolong that discharge over time, right? So that we don't discharge more water than the existing condition today at any one point. Do you understand? So all we have to store is the additional water. We don't have to store the whole volume. You know what I mean? So for instance, if you had, the discharge rate is less than the existing. So the discharge rate for each individual storm, and that's in the report, and I compared the two. Here in Table 6, for the 2-year storm, the discharge rate of the existing condition would be 4.6 cubic feet per second. That means cubic foot is about 8 gallons. So 8 gallons per second is 1 cubic foot, right? So this is 3 times that. And that would be, at the 2-year storm, how much would be passing by the meter today, if it was to rain today, 3.5 inches. In the proposed condition, with our controls and our storage, it's reduced down to 3.9. So we have a 15% reduction. We're discharging into the pond 15% less water at the 3.5-inch rainstorm in 24 hours. So far, so good?
Yep. And then where does it go from the detention basins?
It gets either
Yeah.
infiltrated into the ground, into the
Yeah.
groundwater, and then that slowly flows through the groundwater and into the pond and recharges that with like clean water that's coming out of the groundwater. Or it just, if that infiltration doesn't happen, we also have a provision so that whole storage volume will discharge into the pond through the control structure, but over a longer period of time, usually 72 hours.
When you discharge into the pond, is that wetland? Discharge into the wetland, you mean?
Yeah, no, the downstream water course from our site is the wetland area. So we're discharging a lower flow than there is today, right? A lower flow rate, and the water will be similar, if not cleaner than the water that there is today, because we have a treatment train of multiple, either secondary treatment, which is swirl concentrators like oil water separators, and then we have hooded catch basins, and then even if the water gets to the wetlands via the groundwater, that's a whole other long media of filtration the water's getting before it goes into the wetland.
And then,
What pond? I don't know if it has a name, but it's the wetland area. I don't know that you guys are regulating.
It's like the headwaters of Bruce Brook, if that's helpful.
and
And so just so you know the history of it, it's kind of, it used to be a brook that ran through. They did a subdivision down south of us, which restricted its flow, and it caused this wetland to be created. You know, so it is what it is. It's a wetland now, and it's a habitat. But I mean, every site that you have everywhere discharges to a water course or a wetland or something like that at some point.
so with the separators and filters, what happens to, say, automotive chemicals, oil, antifreeze that are held back?
Right. So
And how do you stop something, say, like an antifreeze that goes into solution, it's water soluble? It's not as easy to separate as oil, let's say.
So like you said, oil is easy to separate. It's just a floatable. So it either gets caught in the hooded catch basin, or then it goes, there's a swirl concentrator, which slows down the water and then siphons it out so that all the floatables stay in the top of the unit, doesn't go conveyed. As far as antifreeze, for instance, when you have things like the gallery system, which then filters into like gravel and then into sand below that actually, breaks down heavy metals, and it filters out heavy metals, and something like antifreeze, like glyphosate, right, is what it really is, should be filtered out through that sand medium. Yeah.
Now, what about, say, like the oil after it's separated? Does anybody clean that, remove the filter?
Yeah. So that's one of the things that staff engineering has made sure that we have operations and maintenance manuals, and we put the actual schedule right on the plans. But if this were to go forward from this commission, we would have a full, like a manual with a maintenance log that anybody can review, and then that would have to be done according to what I put there. Is they have to monitor it every 6 months, and then if they have above a certain depth of either floatables or sediments, they have to vacuum them out with a vac truck.
And if they don't?
If they don't, they're in violation, and then you can fine them. Yep.
This Spruce Brook empties into Worcester Pond, is that right? Well, they have problems down there already. They replaced the bridge once.
Yep. So this
And
type of.
And they
sorry.
couldn't even do it right because, well, you know what we went through there. So with that being said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Would you put more water down this? These people live on that brook. I mean, there's
No,
something.
you're correct with your concerns,
Yeah.
and that's why
There's something to
the
be said
state
about this.
the state has the MS4 requirements, and then the town must comply with them also. So that's why we're trying to balance.
I
We don't
understand.
want to starve the wetland of too much water, so
The-
it has an impact on it. But what we are doing is reducing the total volume of water right through to every
I
every
understand
rainstorm.
that. I understand exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is, there's people that live there, and the land's being eroded now as it is.
Right.
And what happens when it's like, now what do we do? That's the problem I got, because when you walk away, it's over. Once this is done, and you walk away, it's over.
It's not necessarily true either, because the reason why we have to, these plans are designed by a licensed engineer,
Yeah, I understand that.
and they require that in the town, is because we are liable for it forever, right? It doesn't go away when we leave. No, that's not true. I know, trust
Well,
me.
once that guy's house
Trust
is.
me. The Consumer Protection Agency puts us through what we have to go through, because we have to make sure that we are good stewards to the community and to public safety. And that flooding is one of those things. Like I was saying, because this is a wetlands commission, for me as an engineer, I would say we should have had these implements 20, 30 years ago. You wouldn't have the issues you have today, right? So we reduce runoff on all, like you can see, I have a good amount of reduction on all the storms. As a wetland agency, you may not like that because it's reducing water flow to the wetland and it's dewatering it somewhat, right?
Yeah.
But what you're saying, your concern is where I can sleep at night, because I know that this project will reduce the amount of floodwaters downstream.
Right, I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
But there's a lot of water that comes there from other areas.
Correct, but we gotta take
But
one
then
side
you're
at a time.
saying, well, that's too bad for them, yeah. I understand that, but in the end, it's up to the town.
Right, so the state and the town itself has been doing a good job, along with staff, to site by site, making these developers catch up to the sins of yesterday, I would like to say, right? So prior to these regulations, I would say in the last 15 to 20 years maybe, there was no regulation that required us to reduce any kind of runoff discharge, right?
This is
It
the
was-
reason the bridge collapsed. right?
Correct. You used to just put a pipe out,
Yeah.
right, and discharge it right to the
Yeah.
nearest waterway, and then downstream how to deal with it, right? So in the
Yeah.
last, so since 2000, I would say 3, I think that's when the first manual came out. The attenuation of volume of water being discharged from any new site has been reduced in any new application. Now, some towns have been slow to adopt these regulations. Stratford is not one of those towns. You guys pick it up. You guys pick it up pretty quick, from what the state, manuals have recommended.
Yeah.
And now with the MS4, which is regulated or administered by your town engineer, he needs a report from me prior to this getting a building permit sign off. He needs a report to me of how I'm taking, how much runoff or square footage acreage am I taking offline? And I need to report it to him, so he has now required to report that to the state. And how Stratford is doing every year, taking drainage offline, meaning that instead of discharging directly into waterways, they're being held on site. And that's the law of the land now.
But as it's reduced, you know as well as I do, the sediment goes with it.
The sediment here is gonna be in the,
Yeah,
in
but
the
as you,
soil
as you
concentrators
dump
and
it
in the
into,
galleries.
as you dump it downstream, the sediment goes into Worcester Pond.
And that's not sediment from this site.
No,
You're talking about sediments
not
that are already in
inside.
place in the
Right,
waterway.
Right, well, right.
So I don't know how that's the site's responsibility, though. So this
I-
site's responsible for what it's doing, what its impact is, which is gonna be a reduction in impact to the waterway, right? From what it is today, because you have a parking lot there right now.
I understand.
And you have basically a commercial development, which is the office building, right? That's been there for I don't know how long. So this
Oh,
is
yeah.
this is an attempt to mitigate all those things, right? So that we are reducing the impact of all that development, site by site, right? And with these new regulations that we have to deal with now, in fact, they issued new ones in March, brand new, which actually now requires us to store either 1.3 inch versus the 1 inch rainstorm for water quality volume. It's only getting more and more restrictive, and that's because we're trying to catch up to all the things that have happened in the last 100 years.
Okay, man, I have a question.
Yep.
You're gonna be moving a lot of rock ledge and mechanically, or you're not gonna blast, are you?
We're gonna try not to blast, right? If you don't, because there's concerns with acidity, I guess there was concerns about the ledge
Do
there.
we have any calculations on acidity runoff? I know me and Kelly were discussing that.
The city runoff?
No, acidic, I'm sorry.
Oh, acidity. No, I mean, we could sample it, but I don't, I think we had responded to it on the last round. I don't remember what I said, but we'll definitely sample it, and if there is any acidity to it, that means that we have to have, which we do, we have, part of our soil erosion control phase is to have sediment traps so that we hold everything on site prior to, but if any kind of acidity is found in the rock, I think we can mitigate that by, lining our sediment traps so they don't infiltrate into the ground. We could hold it and then have it pumped out. Any kind of acidic water or neutralize it, right? I mean, if it's acidic, you just got to put a basic in there and you make it neutral, right?
Would you be able to prepare like a hydrogeologic investigation of the site specifically to help kind of mitigate some of those concerns?
Hydraulic so your concern is if we start blasting and then the runoff from the rock is acidic, right? So
Is that something that could be studied in advance, so we have an idea of where bedrock is being proposed for removal, and if there is concern, we can mitigate it before?
yeah, I mean, we can definitely provide you a report prior to any kind of blasting, analysis of the rock, over its pH, But, I mean, to say that to do that before an approval from me, I mean, so what I can do is have a condition that I'll provide a report to your staff, and if they believe that there's more it needs to be a more detailed control plan for that runoff that comes off while they're blasting. We can definitely agree to that, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to go do the testing right now and to disturb the site just to see if the rock's acidic, I mean,
Could they do a core drilling?
yeah,
to
so
see
there's gonna be
if-
borings, sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
to find
So
out-
there's gonna be borings regardless, because when the building, to build the building's foundation, so we
Yeah.
have to do borings on the site anyway.
Right.
But to take on that cost, if we don't even have an approval, is a little bit much.
Oh, yeah. I know, it's all about the money.
But Kelly, you had mentioned not just as acid, but possible iron or, you know,
Yeah, iron's easy to deal with. Like I said, we have sediment traps. We can
Okay.
settle the iron right there in those ponds. I've done some work with the CLP and Eversource when they put up the high-tension power lines. We've created sediment basins, and then we use flock logs to take all the suspended solids out of the water, and then we drain the water out, we pump it out, and then we scoop everything out into containers and deal with it that way.
I think we would need a blanket statement saying you would be willing to, you know, incur the costs of any negative implications that come out of removing all the bedrock.
Right,
That
but
you'd be willing to remediate and deal with that.
Right, correct, yeah.
If we wanna
But I would
approve
say,
this ahead of time.
that we would have to supply a report of a sampling of the.
That would be
bedrock.
better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't want to incur that now and do the boring, you're saying.
Not now, no, but
But-
if this commission decided to approve this, I would say have that condition so that we
Right.
ensure that your staff and this commission is secure that there won't be any acidic runoff from the site from the blasting.
Well, again, a more general statement, any
Right.
kind of negative implications of the exposed bedrock to the
Right.
water.
Correct, that's
Okay,
fine.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, so that's why we have to sample it first. We're gonna break it up, sample it in a lab, see if there's any acidic materials in it, meaning that anything that, it's basically if there's excessive hydrogen ions in it, right? So not to get chemistry lesson, but what happens then is I have to come to either the commissioner or your staff and say, hey, this is what the results are. We need to do this. We need to have like a lined pond underneath this rock as we're blasting it, so all the water gets caught there, right? And then we can either neutralize the water, right, which is easy to do. You know, OH ions can, you know, neutralize it. And then once we get the pH close to between 5 and 7, we can then discharge that water.
Yeah. Well, it's just that, you know, the wetland will be on life support, you know, with all of these different,
No, this is all prior
Filters,
to the.
pumps.
This is all water. This all happens prior to the wetland.
I just have one other thing, if I
Joe?
may. So, from the reading, this stormwater management, all the infrastructure is designed to handle a 10-year storm,
It's designed to handle up to a 100-year storm.
a 100-year storm.
Yeah. So what the town engineer was asking about was the actual catch basin tops, right? So can the catch basin tops absorb at least up to the 10-year storm? And so your public streets are designed to that standard, right? So what our response was is that we've actually analyzed it, and it's up to the 25-year storm. So we exceed your road standards, right? So if it was, all that's really saying is that we're not flooding the parking lot, right? So the water's going to the system and not sitting on the top of the pavement. But either way, the water's getting held back, right? So as a wetland agency, you would want the conveyance system to be designed to something less, right? So the 10-year storm or the 5, because then what really becomes the storage is the parking lot itself, right? It's just holding the water back there. But what the town engineer wants us to do is to at least meet the town standard, which is the 10-year storm, and we exceeded it.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask that our commission go into executive session in room 213 to discuss this further. We need a motion for that.
Make a motion.
Motion by
Oh, and-
Angela?
Thank you, thank you.
I'm sorry? Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, and congratulations to your staff for her accolades recently. Want that for the record.